Is it weird that I haven't seen the movie yet, but I think this Sleepy Panda May cuddle toy is the best thing I've ever purchased in my life? Hey guys, Cher here, and am I finally doing a live video that does not include me ranting for a good 30 minutes? Half yes, half no, but with the context of the video, I think it's only like 1/10 or maybe 1/8 at best ranting, while everything else is actually just me explaining things. So if you didn't look at the title of the video yet, or maybe you did, that's why you clicked on this, I'm going to be basically discussing Disney rides, more in particular Disney World and Disney in California attractions that I don't really go on. I thought of this because, well, one, there was one riding experience in particular that sort of inspired me to do this video, and second thing was, we all have our favorite theme parks to go to, right? And there are probably theme parks that we go more often than not, and every time we go to these theme parks, we sort of build ourselves a generalized itinerary of what we want to do for our casual time in this park and stuff to avoid. It's just human nature. And especially if we're adults or we're families planning on like what to do throughout the day, like to keep ourselves entertained. Yeah, it's important to know what's worth going on or what's worth seeing, and what's not worth going on or going to go see. So, my favorite theme parks that I go to more often than not are the Disney parks, more specifically the ones in the United States. I would have included Paris in this, but I only literally went there once in my life, and that was years ago, and that is definitely a park that I would not be visiting that often anyway. And also, we went during very early spring break. It was very wet, cold, and snowy in Paris at the time. So it was probably not the best time to go, and I probably did not have the best experience there. But like I said, I only went there once. I can't really remember what rides I went on anyway. So that park is out of the question, and I have not been to the others to make that deduction. So the rides I'll be discussing are strictly Walt Disney World in Florida, which includes all 4 of the main parks, and Disneyland, which includes Disneyland and Grand California Adventure. And this is just me. I don't have like a concrete list of which one I prefer over the other. These are just general rides that I will refuse to go on because they're either a waste of my time or I just generally don't like them. And like I said, there's only really 1 or 2 rides that I'm gonna rant about full on. And oh, spoiler alert, for the very last ride, there's going to be major spoilers because this ride had just opened to the public, so I know not everyone has ridden on it yet. So, soon as I get to, and I will give out this warning when I get there, this will be my last ride to talk about. This will be the number 1 ride that I'll refuse to go on. I will give this warning when I get there. And when I get to this point, if you don't want to be spoiled, I highly suggest you just clock out of the video at that moment. And don't say I didn't warn you, because the last thing I tried to do is to spoil people, especially of newer things. I hate spoilers. So I wouldn't want to be spoiled either unless I felt like doing it. But yeah, this is necessary. So maybe this first ride is considered an honorable mention or a cop-out one, because I actually technically have not ridden this one yet, because I think it opened either right before COVID or during or like after COVID was over, and I have not been to California in multiple years because of the pandemic. And that would be the Spider-Man Web Slingers ride at California Adventure in the Marvel campus universe. So, from my understanding, like, this ride is barely talked about, and I guess you can kind of predict how much the public likes or dislikes this ride based on how often people talk about it. So basically, this is a screens more hands-on version of Toy Story Mania, which is funny because Toy Story Mania also exists within California Adventure at Paradise Pier, or Pixar Pier, now that it's called. So I find this very ironic. So the gist of the ride, to my understanding about what this is, it's a game ride where you're basically going through a training session with Tom Holland Spider-Man, and you have to, I think, destroy targets or destroy enemies, or like I said, people rarely talk about this ride, so I really don't know. And how you do it is basically you shoot targets as if you have a thing on your hand that's basically lets you shoot spider webs like Spider-Man does. But the thing is, there's no control stick or gun or anything like that to activate the web swinging per se. You literally have to use your own hand and actually basically flick at the screens to attack the targets. Now, on paper, this might actually sound fun because, hey, what kid doesn't want to be Spider-Man and actually get the chance to flick spider webs? Like, this is literally like a superhero fan's dream come true. In action, when I think of doing this or whatever it is they want us to flick us to do, I think of arthritis. Like, my hands already hurt enough playing Buzz Lightyear Ranger Spin and Toy Story Mania just by holding my hand so tightly on the gun or pulling on the string so many times. Sorry for the computer shake or the camera shake. I already sensed the pain going through my wrists thinking about doing that just by sitting here. I'm not even going on the ride right now. I'm stuck in my room. I'm not even going anywhere yet. And my hands already hurt thinking about that. So why the heck is it a good idea to basically hurt your wrists even more by doing a motion that no one really does every day, and it's highly recommended that you should not do that? Especially a lot. Again, this is a throwaway because, again, I've never been on this ride. I kind of don't know what it's fully about. But I do know about the game mechanic, and a lot of people do complain about that. And like I said, based on pictures I've seen of the campus ever since the last time I've been there, which was, again, years ago at this point, and basically the Avengers campus, that's what it's called. Avengers campus is now like basically a carnival version of what it should have been. Yeah, it's safe to say that going on this ride, especially for me who's not even a superhero fan, is not a good idea. Okay, the next two rides, the real candidates for this list, basically, I'm gonna talk about them at the same time because they're basically the same ride, and that's Dinosaur in Disney World's Animal Kingdom and the Indiana Jones Adventure, which is in Disneyland. I just don't like it because these two rides make my autism quirks act up the worst. What I mean by that is that both rides are very terribly loud, both rides are very terribly bumpy, and they also have these sensory effects where I just don't appreciate it on an attraction. I mean, if you like these rides, you do you. Like, my friends love it, my sister loves it, and I try my best to basically wait in the gift shop for them to come out because the line for Indiana Jones is like very long. So I get more forced to go on that one than I do Dinosaur. And Dinosaur's lines are like very short. So my friends and sister like get on the ride and get off the ride like super quickly. So waiting in the gift shop is a lot easier than Indiana Jones is because Indiana Jones, that ride can go for hours in standby lane. It's ridiculous. If I had it my way for a perfect day, I would have avoided those two rides at all costs because I really, besides, both of them even have like camera features. If you look at my picture, like at the end of the ride, like you'll know, like I'll have my ears covered and everything. It's just super embarrassing. So I would prefer to spare the embarrassment. And then the next ride that I came up with was Frozen Ever After in Epcot, the one that replaced Maelstrom. There is literally no reason on the face of the earth that this ride should be, or at least the queue for the ride should be longer than 2 hours. The fact that when this ride first opened, the queue lines went up to over 5 hours was just insanity to me. I mean, yes, I don't like Frozen. If you guys ever watched my Frozen rant, you know this. You know I don't like the movie. But that's not the main point. The very first time I rode on this ride, it was with my aunt and my grandmother. We decided that we were gonna go to Epcot because I had like a day off from school. And my grandmother really wanted to go on this Frozen ride. The wait was 4 hours long. And so we thought, oh, there must be some, like, I don't know, because she was in a wheelchair. There must be some, like, disability, like, perk that we could get out of this. But apparently no. Apparently the line for if you have wheelchairs is the same line as the normal queue. So we had to wait for 4 hours standing up. Well, not her. My grandmother was in the wheelchair. Standing up in this queue line. And I'm sitting there listening to the Frozen soundtrack for 4 hours. Like, wishing that I were dead. Like, 2 hours, maybe if it was a rainy day, I understood that because Maelstrom's lines got super long whenever it rained. So I would have been perfectly okay with that. But no, I wasted half of a good theme park day waiting in that stupid line. And then when you actually get on the ride itself, like, I mean, Maelstrom was nothing that fantastic either. But at least they had real animatronics in Maelstrom. Every time I go on this Frozen ride, I am constantly reminded of basically what I call the Buzz Lightyear animatronic face. Like, you know how on Buzz Lightyear Ranger Spin, like, which was built, like, in the 90s, early 2000s or something, like, the animatronic had this weird, like, video face. Yeah, for some reason, Disney thought to bring the video face back as a really good idea. Maybe because it was cost effective or something, but they just look so uncanny, and it's so weird. I think the only two animatronics where the video thing kind of works is one Olaf. I don't know, maybe it's because the carrot nose, like, distracts from how the rest of the face looks. And because he's made out of snow anyway, so it kind of doesn't make a difference. And then Sven, because Sven doesn't talk. I think the only thing about Sven that's actually like the computer thing are his eyes. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe he's just a normal animatronic, but even if Sven does have like the video eyes, he looks completely normal. Because then you look at Anna, Elsa, and Kristoff, and their video faces are just, no. They tried their hardest to make them look like the characters from the movie, but no. Because you have their dark colored clothing on their costume, on the animatronic. And then like the skin on their face where the video takes place, it's so bright. It's just so weird. Like, I don't know why Disney keeps doing this. Like, this is what I don't like about the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train too. Like when they put the video faces on the animatronics of the dwarves. But at least the roller coaster part is fun, and I go on for that. Frozen Ever After, because it's basically the Maelstrom track, but instead, like, the start of the ride is actually at the old Maelstrom exit. Sorry for the noise, like, the weed whacker guy just thought it was a good idea to start coming over, like, literally right after it started pouring. Like, I guess it makes sense, like, that wise, because people, like, there's a section where people get off and there's another section where people get on. That part I'm not concerned about, but Frozen makes me wish that Maelstrom was never taken down. But I know why they did, because Maelstrom was old. Disney wanted to revamp Epcot from Educationalville to IP Land, which, you know what? You do you, I guess. I just thought, yeah, Frozen, even for like a kiddie ride, is not exactly that worth it. And then the next one, I'm just going to make it brief. the Tomorrowland Speedway in Magic Kingdom and Autotopia. Is it Autotopia or Autopia? I don't know. In Disneyland. These rides have not aged well. I don't think they aged well even when they opened, because imagine you're 17 years old, you had just gotten your driver's license, and you can finally ride those Tomorrow Speedway cars by yourself. You get in the car, and you're ready to drive it, but all of a sudden, your driving on the Tomorrowland Speedway was even worse than from when you passed your driver's license test. Yeah, that's basically the experience of the ride. I don't have to say anymore. Next, we have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I know this ride's new, I know people like it, but allow me to explain. Now, granted, this is basically from my experience of the version in Hollywood Studios, which replaced the Great Movie Ride. I'm not talking about the version in Disneyland's California, because I have not ridden that one, because obviously it opened like after the COVID thing died down, but I have not gone there since then yet, so strictly Hollywood Studios. Something about trackless dark rides irks me. Like, I get how awesome the new technology is because it's not restricted to one track. Because if you've been on older track rides, it's very obvious, like, where the car's gonna lead you and stuff like that. But when you're a kid, you kind of don't see it. But when you're taller and older and you can see, like, where the track is, yeah, it's kind of distracting. So I understand why trackless rides exist. The biggest problem with track rides, which pretty much everyone has mentioned already, is that there's just so much empty space. Because apparently for safety reasons, if something happened with the carts, like, there's like, I can't explain the mechanics that well because I'm not an engineer, but there are mechanics in the floor which basically guide the cars to where they need to go on the trackless ground. And if something were to malfunction, like, the space is meant for the cars to have like some sort of leeway before they start crashing into the wall or something. So yes, I get it. It's very important for you to have space. But the problem is, or the problem for at least Runaway Railway is, because they basically took over this warehouse set of a building where the Great Movie Ride is, literally the majority of the building is black and dark, and the floor is entirely black. It's like Disney decided that they were not going to do anything to make it look like a cartoon world per se, because, I don't know, budgetary reasons, whatever the whatnot, or they just want to keep the building intact or something. Again, I don't know. I legit don't. But how bloody empty this ride was. Like, it's supposed to, the point of the ride is that you're supposed to be in a Mickey Minnie cartoon. At least the more modern ones, anyway. You're supposed to be in the cartoon. So everything's supposed to look colorful and pretty and pastel-y, like a cartoon. Like, a cartoon's supposed to be very colorful, right? No, this ride is not that. Like, especially the room with the tornado. Like, that, I remember going into that scene for the very first time, and I basically saw the entire room, like, the lighting in that room, or at least the excessive lighting in that room, was a complete mess. Like, you would think that in the tornado room, it's supposed to, show you that, oh, you're getting caught up in the storm or whatever. Instead of making it look stormy, it's basically a, tornado prop with like little like Crocs stickers attached into it in a black room. I had never ever had the experience where I was taken out of a ride, or at least the story of a ride or the atmosphere of a ride, until that moment. And that really pissed me off, because my sister and I were like, they gutted out one of the greatest Disney attractions of all time for this. The choices this company makes, I swear on my life. And then this one I'm gonna go through very quickly because it basically has the same problems that Runaway Railway does, except to a greater extent, Rise of Resistance from Hollywood Studios in the new Star Wars land. I don't know what Disney was trying to do with this ride, because I think what they were trying to do is they tried to do what Universal Studios does, in which the attractions are to basically put you in the environment of the movie, which Universal Studios does extremely well. With Rise of the Resistance, the moment you go through the dark caves, which has no lighting at all, and I'm probably sure people have bumped into each other at times because of how dark the queue inside the cave is for when you first enter the ride. Like, it tries to make you think that you're in the land of Star Wars or in the Star Wars universe. Like literally half the attraction is queues. Like, it's like that scene from Fairly Odd Parents where there's a cutaway gag where it talks about Escalator Land.
Dad, when do we get to the ride?
This is the ride! Yippee!
This is literally the real life version of that scene from Fairly Odd Parents. And that is the most uncanny thing in the world to me. It's like half of the time you're going from one room to the next, and then you enter like this simulator ride vehicle that's supposed to take you to the First Order ship base. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I don't know what any of these things are called, and I really don't care. So you get taken in by the First Order, which is the group, or the group that Kylo Ren is in charge of. And Kylo Ren is supposed to like interrogate you to tell you where the secret base is, where I think the secret base is where you start at, technically speaking, and then you go places. So and then the final part of the attraction, which is finally the ride, is that you're escaping from the First Order to go back to whatever planet it is. I really don't remember. Again, this is how much I really don't care. Yeah, if you thought waiting in lines just to get to the ride was bad enough, then you actually get on the ride, which is, again, mostly empty space because it's a trackless dark ride. Well, dark ride, I guess. You would think for a Star Wars spaceship attraction that there would be lots more to see. Like, I don't know, maybe like actual animatronics or like more vehicles or something like that, or vehicles that are not guest vehicles, but like more like robots, androids or something like that, animatronics that you have to dodge from. No. It's mostly empty floor. It's bleak. It's this is why, like, I'm so iffy about, like, no, the only trackless dark ride I think that works from what I've been on is the Ratatouille adventure, because they put so many things for you to look at. Even like the screens that you interact with at least fill up the room enough that you can see like different details without you saying, oh, it's the same ride experience all over again. And that was a ride that was from France from like a decade ago or something like that. That's how cool that ride is. Rise of Resistance and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway are so empty. Like, they have so much space that they created in these buildings that they just don't use it. And part of it's for safety, but then part of it's just maybe for budget reasons, or they're just not creative enough to expand the setting. I spend a good half hour on Rise of Resistance walking around that you would think that the actual ride part would be just worth it. It's not. It's really not. It's just a glorified, like, film session that it's basically a Universal attraction ripoff. A glorified Universal attraction ripoff. And it just annoys me. And again, I avoid things to avoid getting annoyed, which is why I hope to God that my parents, when they come down to, actually, I don't think we're going to Hollywood Studios. I think we all agree that Hollywood Studios was like the worst park. So I don't think we're going there for a while. But I think we can make an agreement that Rise of the Resistance is not great. And I would rather wait for them outside for a good hour than go on it again. Because there are literally better things I can do with my time then basically go from room to room. Speaking of Star Wars, then we have Smuggler's Run. Again, which kind of relates to the web slinger thing, except Smuggler's Run does something even worse. It tries to incorporate video games into an actual simulator room. But that's not even the worst part of that, because on paper, when I was a kid, I would think that would be super fun to play video games, like in a theme park. But the only way that works is if you have people to enjoy it with, aka your friends, your family. Because how Smuggler's Run works, it seats about 6 people in this room that's basically your spaceship, and you're basically playing a game that requires you to get from one place to another, and the one thing you have to do is make sure that your health bar is not at dead in order to finish the whole way. Again, like I said, this works if you have people who know what the hell they're doing. So for example, if you have a party of 6, you go into one room, you know how to play the game, that's fine. But as we know with all things at an amusement park, that's not always going to be true. What if you're a party of 4? That means you need an extra party of 2 in order to fill in a room. And you need to fill a whole entire room for this ride to work, because all 6 positions are super important. I know there's 2 engineers, 2 pilots, and I forgot what the 2 other positions were. So basically, I'm about to list the things that could go wrong that make this the worst ride ever. 1, if you're paired up with parties that you don't know and you don't get along well as you're waiting in line, it's awkward. And when you're awkward, you don't communicate. And communication is critical on this ride. So if you're not communicating, you're gonna lose all your health bar and you're pretty much dead. The ride's over. Problem 2, you might get people who don't speak English. And I'm not saying they're not allowed to enjoy the ride. That is not what I'm saying at all. But the instructions are only in English. And the majority of cast members who work on this ride don't speak like Spanish, or what if like I know there are a lot of Indian tourists that come there, so they don't speak, what's the language? Hindi? Like, if I'm incorrect, I am terribly sorry. Like, there are a lot of people who come to Disney World who don't speak English. And they're allowed to have fun, obviously. It just makes it super harder when they don't have instructions supplied to you in the language that's not English. And I feel bad for those people because they just want to enjoy a ride, but instead they have to basically struggle on this video game mechanic that they don't understand what to do. Like, my sister and I went on Mission Space recently, and because there was just 2 of us, they paired up like another couple like behind us. Like, now granted, Mission Space is not video games at all, it's just a simulator, and yes, there is a mechanic in which like you have to push buttons and stuff, but for the person like or the individual riding, that is not mandatory. So if you don't push the button in time, the ride's still going to continue. And the couple behind us did not speak English. I think my sister said they spoke German. And even when in regards to the cast members telling them where to go, they had little understanding of what the cast members were saying. So we were like, oh, thank God this is not actually an attraction that's so highly dependent on the guests knowing what they're doing, or else this ride would have been a terrible experience. Smuggler's Run is highly dependent on the guests' understanding on how to run it. So if you have people who don't understand the concept or don't know how the mechanics work, you're in for a rough ride. And rough ride meaning your ride would probably end in less than a minute. And then there comes the kind of worst part. If you have children riding this, now granted, I'm not saying children can't ride this at all, but when it comes to video game mechanics, especially the pilot's roll, because the pilot's roll, there's one lever where you have to go up and down, and it works like exactly like airplane mechanics, meaning down is up and up is down. And then you have the second chair that literally goes left to right. So you literally have 2 people doing different things. So you have to be telling your partner, go left or go up, go down, whatever. Children don't understand how plane mechanics work, and if they do, great, that makes it better. But Normally, cast members give the pilot role, which is the most crucial role of the ride, to children because, it's the cast member, it's the Disney experience, whatever. But children don't know that this is actually a ride in which they need to do things, because when children go on a ride, they're gonna expect to have fun and let the ride do things for them. I don't blame them personally, that's what I would think too. So when you have like 2 small children, maybe 5 years old at least, in the role that requires you to actually keep your spaceship afloat in order to complete the game, you're screwed. I'm sorry, the majority of the time, you're screwed. Because these kids are basically gonna play with the mechanics, not knowing that they're crucial to pretty much anything. So again, Smuggler's Run on paper sounds like a really fun thing, but in actual action, unless you have the right people to make this work, Smuggler's Run is by far one of the worst rides I've ever been on in history. Even when I was in the pilot role for the first time and only time I rode it, I was panicking because I didn't know how the mechanics worked. No one explained that this was actual airplane mechanics. Like, the cast members only tell you what your roles are and why they're important, but they don't explain how the ride works. So if you don't so unless you did your research beforehand, or if you went on this before, this ride is not fun for anybody. And then my basically second worst ride that I refuse to go on only because it is literally a waste of my time is the Navi River journey. And I'm gonna try to keep this short because the ride is literally half of a ride. Like, I have never been on an attraction where a theme park literally built half of it and basically charge you a full price for it. And when I say full price, I'm talking about like general day ticket stuff. I'm not talking about you actually charge extra to go on this ride. I think most people have probably been on this ride by now. So basically, Navi River Journey is supposed to be almost like, it's a small world-ish, but in the Avatar universe. So you get to see like very cute scenery in the jungles and such. Like, you get to see it's more screens of like Avatar animals and of like the Navi society and whatnot. And towards the end of the ride, and yes, I'm getting there, you get to see one of the most impressive animatronics, which is of the Navi shaman. Again, it is really cool. I'm not going to deny that. It's like, at the time, it was one of the most complex but also intricate animatronics ever made. And again, it's really cool. But then you get into the caves where it makes you believe that, there's gonna be like interior Navi stuff. You think there's gonna be more Navi animatronics to see, right? No. You go into the cave, you get to see some like cool Navi art and whatever, and the ride just ends. I had never been so angry in my life. Like, I remember literally getting off the boat and we go outside because I was with my parents and my sister at the time. We get off this ride and I was literally screaming, "That's it? That's the entire ride?" Like, they looked at me like I was an insane person, but like, was I being gaslit to believe that this was a full attraction? It wasn't until later when I actually found out that in the making of the Avatar land, Disney actually ran out of budget. So in order to make sure the actual land looked good, they literally cut the Navi River journey in half. I don't know if Disney's ever gonna do a renovation on that boat ride, but sometime in the future, I hope they do. Because you would have to knock me out with a baseball bat and shove me on the boat in order for me to go on that again. It was just like, I'm not gonna be gaslit into thinking that the Navi River Journey is a good ride. There's literally a reason why Flight of Passage has like super long lines. Like, especially when open, it had super long lines because it's the only full ride in that part of the park. And when you have stuff like Expedition Everest or Kilimanjaro Safari or Cali River Rapids, again, if it's off season, no one wants to go on Cali River Rapids because the water's damn cold. And then you're waiting for the middle of the day for Kilimanjaro Safari because that's when most of the animals are going to come out. Or basically specific parts of the day for the safari, depending on when the animals are out and about. And maybe you don't want to go on Expedition Everest yet because it's the roughest ride in the park, other than Dinosaur, I guess. So, again, like, Flight of Passage is the perfect ride. You're going to see more people on Flight of Passage that has longer lines than Navi River Journey. Like, Navi River Journey, I think ever since it opened, it was like 0 minutes to a half hour for that ride. Like, 30 minutes is probably all I could wait for on Navi River Journey if I'm dragged to go on that. But again, if I had it my way, I would skip that ride altogether. And most of the time, we do. Because I'm not wasting my time on half a ride. Like, that's just common sense, isn't it? Alright, so we finally get to the number one ride that I'm not gonna go on, and as I've stated in the beginning of the video, heavy spoilers because not everyone's ridden this ride yet. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, just hop out of this video right now. I will not be offended. I promise I won't be offended. But either you don't care about spoilers or you have been on this ride before, then let's go ahead and continue, shall we? Tron. Yeah, I would argue that Tron is the number one worst ride in Disney World. Like, it doesn't exist in Disneyland, so I can't tell you much about that, but Disney World, it is hands down, at least for the Magic Kingdom, it's hands down the worst ride I've ever been on, and I refuse to go on that again. This ride had so many problems right from the cast member opening. I was like, oh no, this is gonna be that bad, isn't it? And even the fact this ride took, even with COVID, because COVID delayed the project, it took 5 years to open this ride, and people already have complaints. You know it was gonna be bad if it takes you 5 years to open a ride, or at least complete the damn thing. Because this is not a entirely new ride. Tron existed in Shanghai Disneyland. That's why they brought it over here, because it was the most popular attraction in Shanghai. Which, first of all, that's not a bad thing, taking rides from other parks to another park. Because for Soarin', that used to be Soarin' over California in California Adventure. Then they brought it to Epcot. That's one of the best rides in the park. And Ratatouille, as I mentioned, that was in Disneyland Paris. And they brought it over here for Epcot. Makes perfect sense. So Tron, bring it over to Tomorrowland, also makes sense. So I was like, oh, okay, I want to see what they got here. Now I understand why there are certain rides that belong in certain countries. And I'm about to explain. So I went on this ride very early on because my parents were DVC owners, and for DVC owners, you are allowed first access and bring your whole entire family with you. Like, that was a cool perk that we got. So waiting for it and actually like going into it was not that terrible because Disney was like pretty organized because they basically reserve your time by the hour, and we got like the 7:30 get in the line, something like that. So it wasn't that bad. We enter like the entrance, and the outside looks pretty cool because some of the coaster goes outside and whatnot. So you get to see the bikes pass. It gets you excited, right? But then you get onto the like main line or pathway that actually takes you inside the building. And the point of the ride, first off, that we discover is that in the similar plot of the movie, you're supposed to be in a bike race and you're supposed to be racing other people. But that's the thing. There is no other track that you're racing. It's just the one, which makes it weird enough. Then there's the part where the cast members were like, oh yeah, we discovered that if you're a certain size, you cannot ride this ride. Now, I would get into the whole thing of why Disney's actually the outlier to this, because ever since going to Universal and Six Flags, it's actually a thing that, like, a certain size person would not be able to ride something due to the safety restraint not closing in tight enough. So for safety reasons, yes, there are going to be heavier people that are not able to ride rides. It's really sad, but unfortunately that's the reality. And it does make me feel bad because imagine you're a parent and you want to go on a ride with your kids, but because you're kind of like not skinny or maybe you're even too muscular or too tall to ride something, and so you have to like not only like embarrass yourself in the line because you can't fit in the car, you have to wait outside then for everyone else. It's a very sad thing. Like, I completely understand that. And what makes Disney so different is that pretty much every single one of their rides is inclusive for everyone. So even if you were like heavier bodied or taller, wider, or something like that, muscular or something like that, you are able to ride the ride. Like, the only time people have been kicked off is for the very extreme cases. Like, there are some people who are like, they really can't walk, or maybe they had like a leg amputated or something like that. Like, I know like amputees are not really allowed to ride extreme rides because of safety reasons, which is perfectly fine. Again, very rare, very extreme cases. We have very rare people who don't get to ride things. But then you have Tron. So yeah, it was to be expected that like heavier people were not going to be able to ride this because of how the bike is actually shaped. Like, there's literally panels that you have to let them click. Like, you have to lean on the bike as close on the bike as possible for those panel things to click. Even on your calves, your back, like I think it's your lower back side actually. And if those don't click, you're not riding. That's just it. And it's already bad enough because I know my friends my friends are not skinny, and that's no offense against them. Like, everyone's beautiful in their own right. But even if they were like normal humanly shaped, even some normally shaped features are gonna cause people to not ride because those safety things are not going to click enough. My sister and I actually saw this happen. There was 2 women who looked around the same size as my mom was, and my mom was able to ride. She rode perfectly fine. But there was these 2 like women in the like 60s or something like that. Like, because the restraints won't click, they had to be kicked off the ride. Why does this relate to why does this relate to right now? Like, we're only in the first part of the queue? Well, because so many people want to ride this and cast members have already had trouble in cast member previews about the size thing, there is a separate line before you actually could join the rest of the line for the test seats. And so if a cast member looks at you and they suspect that you're not going to be able to ride, they're going to take that guest and their family to the test seats. And if they say you won't fit in the test seats, they're going to warn you they're basically going to kick you off the line because you're not going to fit on those bikes. And there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Like, if you don't fit in the test seats, you're not going to fit in the bikes. But that's the thing that, again, my sister and I saw. Even if you fit in the test seats, there's some weird phenomenon which some of the proportions from the actual seat to the test seat are like a few inches off. So even if you fit on the test seat, you're not going to fit on the actual bike, which I think is stupid and is most humiliating to people who actually fit in the test seat, because now they're excited. They actually can go on the ride, and then they go to the actual ride seat, and then they're told they have to get off, like in front of a ton of people who never either one have also tried the test seat and they were fine, and then they were able to fit on this ride, or never had to try the test seat because cast members are like, oh yeah, you're gonna fit, you're gonna be fine. So that's how I know this is going to be a problem when basically cast members have to look at you and basically judge whether you have to go on the test seat or not. And then you actually go into the queue building, because then from the queue building, you're actually going to go down to the loading station. When you first enter the building, you get, like, they put a few people into this room where basically it's supposed to transition you from Tomorrowland to the Tron world. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. Like queues do this all the time, yada yada. I didn't really care that much. But then you get down to the loading station. I don't know too much about Tron. I know my dad and my mom have watched it. I don't know or care much about the Tron series. But the moment I went into the loading station, I was like, you would think for a sci-fi universe there would be more, I don't know, lights in the building? Because the loading station was just basically a black room with ramps that lead you down to the loading floor. And the only thing with color on it were the bikes. I was like, could you have added, I don't know, because it's Tron, like, could you have added, like, blue, neon something? Because it was just a black room. It was that foreboding and corporate. Like, I know, I keep saying, like, this is not the worst part of anything, but it does get worse. So then my sister and I finally go onto the bikes. And once they clip you into those bikes, if your thighs are too thick, they will actually get caught on, like, I don't know if it's the metal or the plastic of the bike, because my thighs hurt like hell sitting in there. And I know we were gonna sit in there for like a minute and a half or something, because that was about how long the ride was. And I will get to why the length of the ride is bad in a sec. So my thighs were already hurting, and I'm being pressed into the bike to make sure that I don't fall out, right? So, I wouldn't consider myself to have, like, I don't know, the biggest chest size of a human being, but my breasts are pretty decent for a woman, I'm sure. With how pressed in you're into the bike, you can tell this ride was designed for people who don't have boobs. Like, you need to have your boobs, like, chopped off in order for your chest to be comfortable. Because my boobs were reverting back in. That was how pressed in I was into the bike. Then you have the handlebars that you're supposed to hold on to, because it's a bike. Like, you have to hold on to For some reason, someone in the design department thought it was a good idea to make the handlebars as spiky as possible. And this is a roller coaster we're talking about. So you need to hold on to the handlebars as tight as possible. Yeah? So I grip onto it, but then the spikes are digging into my skin. I'm like, who the hell designed this? Like, is this exactly how this was designed in Shanghai? Because this ride is like, you have to wear gloves in order to ride it. Like, I've never been on an attraction that required me to put on gloves before riding. Like, that sounds insane, because who the heck thinks that? Like, yes, people do wear biker gloves, but it's not required. It's just an aesthetic thing. Yeah, for this ride, they should have warned you, maybe bring a pair of, like, leather gloves before riding, because your hands are gonna hurt. And then the actual ride experience happens. And like I said with the story before, you're supposed to be on a bike race, and you're supposed to be going through, like, these targets, and if you go through all of the targets before your opponent does, you win. Like, fine. Like, I don't care much about the story, or I don't care how simple it is, as long as it gets me from point A to point B, fine. And I said earlier that the ride was about a minute and a half long. I'm like, okay, like, roller coasters are not that long anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But it's not about the length, it's about how exciting is in equalization to the length that makes the experience matter the most. So when you finally launch off, the ride first takes you to the outside portion. And at night, I will give the ride credit for this, at night it's really nice. They have all the lights outside and everything. It was really cool. But then they take you to the inside of the building, again, to where, like, the rest of the track area is. And if I thought the loading station looked barren, empty, and corporate and cheap as heck, the actual inside portion of the ride is a lot worse. Like, it literally, everything is, like, mostly black. Again, barely no lights. And all of the props look like they're made out of cardboard.
It's made out of cardboard.
And frosting.
Like, my college theater made better prop sets than Disney did for this attraction. I was shocked that once this ride would open to the public, that they're gonna charge people about, like, over $20 for a 1.5 minute ride that not only hurts you, but then insults your intelligence by having the inside look like nothing. It looked like this whole thing was built from a carnival attraction company. Now, I expect carnival attractions at 2 places and, well, 3 places. 3 places only. 1, a carnival. 2, the county fair, because they're meant to be temporary. 3, the boardwalk, because they're supposed to be made on the cheap. I don't expect carnival attraction level attractions at an expensive theme park resort like Disney. I am floored, absolutely floored at how everything with an attraction taken from for an Asian audience to an American audience can go so wrong. I can't even fathom what the Disney company were thinking. It's like, oh yeah, Tron's really popular in Asia, fine. But did they actually look at the ride for themselves and figure that this ride would be good for an American audience? What, if the majority of your audience can't even fit on the ride in the first place? And 2, you don't argue how ugly it looks? Like from the inside out? Like the outside looks perfect. Like the outside actually looked good. The inside of the attraction looked like it was built by middle school, like backstage theater students. And I would know that backstage theater students in middle school can do better than what Disney did. That's how insulting Tron is. And I know it's going to be popular right now, or it probably is very popular right now because 1, it's new. 2, it's an attraction from actually, I don't think Shanghai Disneyland is even that popular anymore, especially with how trashy it looks. Like it was the popular attraction from another country's park. A park that majority of people are never going to experience. So I get it. And 3, it's from a property that no one's probably ever heard of in years. So, I mean, people haven't talked about Avatar in years, and apparently, like, people went nuts over that. So for Tron, yeah, people kind of went nuts, especially geeks, like, and nerds. Like, it's a geeky, nerdy property. So I completely understand why people would be attracted to that. Like, it has all of the things that people would be attracted to, but it literally does nothing to keep up its hype. And now that everyone pretty much knows about it, and pretty much everyone has made a video on how terrible this attraction is, like I would know I've watched those videos. Well, actually, after that, I've written it, of course, because I didn't want to spoil myself, and since my parents got, like, the spots for the DVC thing, I was not going to spoil myself anyway. But this ride is literally everything wrong with the Disney company right now. Like, if people ask me again, list all the things that are wrong with Disney, one other thing I would mention from their live action movies is the Tron ride. Like, if I keep mentioning, like, this is how bad it is, I'm gonna be going on for another hour. So, I'm just gonna cut it off right here. Now you know all the rides that I don't like. And like I said, if there are certain attractions you do like that I don't from this video, that's fine. That means you probably found something in those attractions that I don't. And again, these are all subjective opinions. However, I can't honestly imagine why people would like Tron at this point. Not only for how short it is, for how cheap it looked, but especially, how can you go on a ride that physically hurts you?
Well, this is it, Pat.
Yup.
Here we go.
Uh-huh.
On the fiery fist of pain.
After you.
With all of that said, I think it's time to end the video right here. So I thank you all for staying with me this far, or for this long. I greatly appreciate you. And if you guys liked what I did, please hit the like button down below. If you have any rides that you refuse to go on from the Disney parks, please share them in the comments. I would be very interested to know. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so. And I have my socials in the description box down below, so go ahead and follow me there. I'm Cait, and it's been real. Ciao!